Ahead, I'll talk with Dr. Chloe Carmichael about Can I Say That? Why Free Speech Matters and how to use it fearlessly. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and this is Some Books Considered. Dr. Carmichael is a clinical psychologist and USA Today best-selling author of Nervous Energy. Among her many credits, she serves on the advisory board of Women's Health magazine. She joins us to talk about Can I Say That? Dr. Chloe, welcome to Some Books Considered.
Thank you so much, Dan. It's great to be with you.
Well, tell us about what inspired you to write this book about the connection between free speech and mental health.
Sure. Well, as a clinical psychologist, I saw a lot of people in my own profession saying a lot of important things about being careful of how we speak because of concerns about hate speech or misinformation or bullying. And while it's true that it's important to be careful with our words, I wanted the public to also know that it is really good for your mental health to express yourself, to be authentic. It's good for your cognitive, emotional, and social processes, and it actually helps us find the better information when we can have open debate.
Well, let's talk about some of the dimensions here. And obviously, we won't have time to go over the entire book in this brief interview. So before we talk about some specifics, could you give us a brief overview? What are readers going to find here?
Yeah, thanks. So in part one of Can I Say That? Why Free Speech Matters and How to Use It Fearlessly, part one is the cognitive, emotional, and social benefits of free speech from a psychological perspective. Speaking is almost like breathing to humans. We don't think about it a lot, but yet it's doing something extremely important for us. So I explain in part one the cognitive, emotional, and social benefits of language and what could happen if we interrupt that wonderful gift. And then in part two, once I've hopefully got everybody excited to use their free speech and I'm wanting others to do the same, part two is about techniques. So it's techniques for speaking up, obviously, when you're feeling pressured to be silent or to self-censor, but it's also techniques for learning how to listen well when other people are saying things, that maybe may trigger us a little bit. We've all been on both sides of that equation, I think.
Well, let's talk about what's going on here in terms of mental health. What happens and what are the downsides if we self-censor ourselves a lot and don't speak out when we really want to?
Yeah. So, Dan, I imagine that your audience, intelligent people, they've heard these common psychology terms like repression, suppression, denial, right? That's when we stuff things down. And so when we stuff things down, we bottle up our emotions. We make ourselves more prone actually to violence and to being aggressive with other people, whether through actual physical violence or, just being passive aggressive when we bottle up our feelings. We also stymie our cognitive process. I mean, haven't we all said something aloud and then as we say it, we say, oh, gee, as I say that aloud, it doesn't actually make sense. I spot an error in my own thinking just through speaking and having a dialogue. Also with social support, we all know we're in an epidemic of loneliness and social support is so important. But if we're hiding our true selves or other people are hiding their true selves, our social support is degraded.
So those are some of the negatives. Let's look at the flip side. What are the positives of expressing ourselves?
Yeah. So when we speak and we talk about, for example, our emotions, just simply labeling our emotions, even if those emotions are negative, what it does is it helps to calm down the amygdala in the brain. The amygdala is the part of the brain that gets very active when we're afraid. And the good news about calming down the part of the brain that's fearful. So if, say, you want to talk about some intergroup conflicts or some political issues, if you talk about it and you put your emotions out on the table, we become less fearful because we can talk about it. And so when we're more fearful, we're actually more likely to become retaliatory or put up walls or deal with people in a very hard way. But the good news is that through talking about it, our brain calms down and our cortisol levels drop. And on a cognitive level, talking things through increases problem-solving abilities and it eases intergroup tensions. When you have two groups of people that are, in conflict, the first thing you want to do is start a dialogue. That's how we help to ease intergroup conflict.
Doing this one-on-one is one thing. Social media is an entirely different thing. And I think a lot of people say things on social media they wouldn't say to you face to face, and others suppress themselves because they're afraid to say something online because of the backlash they can get.
Totally. Yeah, I think social media is definitely its own animal. And, there's a whole section in the book on the importance of self-restraint. So just because this is a book about the mental health benefits of free speech and the harms of self-censorship, that does not mean that this is a book about having no filter and saying everything in your head everywhere and even just putting it out there on social media, right? So there is an importance of self-restraint and of choosing your time and your place and choosing the place to have a productive dialogue. And I totally agree, arguing with a bot on social media is probably not going to really give you those benefits of language and open dialogue.
And it's not just what we say, but it's how we say it. So what advice do you have for people who want to broach maybe a sensitive subject but don't want to immediately trigger people by bringing it up?
Yeah, that's a great point. And you're 100% right there, Dan. It is how we say it. So, first of all, just understand, and I had this myself. I went through my own journey. I share in the book about becoming a little bit more outspoken. And when you're first speaking up, you might find it comes out in fits and starts. If you've been bottling stuff up for a long time, what you really think about, whether it be abortion or welfare or climate change or any of these topics, when we're bottling them up, they can come out a little bit awkwardly at first sometimes. So just be prepared for that. And there's a technique in the book called narrating your experience, which just means that you prepare people. You say, hey, look, I've been bottling up my feelings about some of this stuff. I read a book by Dr. Chloe. Can I say that? I want to start sharing more, and I want you to feel free to do the same. I'm going to go ahead and share some views I have that, might even surprise you. So you set it up for people in a way that's a little bit vulnerable and open, not just like a non sequitur where you're just, blurting out your views. It can also help to write them down first, organize your points and your thoughts. Again, choosing the right time and place with people and making sure that you're really prepared to listen. So when people share their views back with you or they respond to you, just recap back to them what they said. Just say, okay, so if I hear you correctly, you're saying X, Y, and Z because you believe A, B, and C. Is that right? And then you're using your gift of language also to show that you're hearing other people, and that will make them more willing to hear you.
One of the things I think people do when they speak up, if they don't follow what you just said, is that they go into it because they think, I am right, I am going to change this person's mind. And if you approach it with that attitude, you're not going to change their mind.
No, you're 100% correct. And, it's important to understand the goal of speaking up is not even necessarily to persuade other people, but remembering it's to help our cognitive process, help our emotional process, and help our social bonds. Nowhere in there does it say to persuade other people, right? Although ironically, as a quick, side benefit, the better you listen, and the better you express yourself, you might actually end up persuading people. But that's not really the real goal. The goal is just to be authentic and let other people be authentic without everybody caught up in a fear of cancel culture. So if you're in a dialogue where there's a disagreement, shift your focus. Instead of trying to get them to agree with you, say, let's figure out, do we see the actual facts differently? Do we disagree on objective facts that could be looked up? Or do we agree on the objective facts, but we interpret them differently? Let's just look at this with curiosity and to understand the nature of our disagreement and where it's coming from. We might discover that we disagree on affirmative action, but we both want to end racism. And we simply disagree about whether affirmative action is an effective strategy to do that. So if we can become curious about what underlies the differences instead of just focusing on persuading, the dialogue will definitely be richer and more enjoyable for everybody.
The desire to be heard, it seems like that's a basic human thing that we need for people to understand us. Even if they disagree with us, if they still understand where we're coming from, that means a lot.
It is so human. You are so right, Dan. So the psycholinguist Steven Pinker from Harvard, many people know who he is. He's such a famous, wonderful thinker. He said that humans need language. We need to speak the way that spiders need to spin webs. It is truly innate. We have specific regions of our brain that are just for speaking and that are just for comprehending language. When we interrupt people's ability for language, all kinds of problems arise. So you're absolutely right. It is a soul level. It is a biological, hardwired need that we have to communicate, which is why I think even some of the best of intentioned people that want to put on these really heavy speech codes, they think that it's going to be, quote, good for people's mental health to make safe spaces or whatever. They don't understand. And that's partly why I wrote the book, to try to help them understand. I believe they're coming from a place of compassion. If they really want to support people's mental health and well-being, please, let's support open dialogue, rather than excessive speech codes.
So it sounds like if you do this appropriately, that it's a win-win. You'll improve your mental health, but by allowing that other person to speak their mind and let them know that you hear them, you're helping with their mental health.
Absolutely. It's a two-way street. And so, when people say, oh, well, words are violence, or, you're threatening my existence with that phrase, with your words, what an anxiety-provoking way to live your life, right? It's hard for the speaker and the listener to imagine that if the wrong words are spoken, it's as if I've run someone over with my car or somebody has run me over with their car. So you're absolutely right. It's a two-way street. A truly safe space where people can truly relax is one where they know that disagreement can be tolerated on both sides, and that, yes, the words can hurt, but they are absolutely not the same as violence, and they are absolutely not threatening our existence.
Well, there's so much more in this book that we won't have time to talk about. What are some of the key insights that you hope readers are going to take from it?
Free speech is good for mental health. That is the main point of Can I Say That? Why free speech matters and how to use it fearlessly. The key insight is that free speech is good for your mental health. We can have disagreements, but even the worst ideas, I talk in the book about, members of the KKK or jihadi recruiters that left those very awful, toxic ideologies. They didn't leave those ideologies because somebody said, shut up, those words are not allowed here. They left those ideologies because somebody sat down and dialogued with them and helped them to go through that cognitive, emotional, and social process I described. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to lend our ears to everybody all the time, but the basic takeaway again, free speech is good for mental health. This book explains why, and then it tells you how to do it from a speaking and a listening perspective.
Now, if someone would like to learn more about the book and the work you do, is there a website you would send them to?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I invite them to come to freespeechtoday.com. That's freespeechtoday.com. And that's where, obviously you can get links to the book. It's available anywhere books are sold, but freespeechtoday.com will give you all the easy links, as well as links to my social profiles and my general contact. I'm hosting free online private discussion groups where people that want to read the book, talk with other people, explore this idea that free speech is good for mental health. I want to talk about it. So I'm having free groups for people that want to do that if they go to freespeechtoday.com.
To learn more, the book is Can I Say That? Why Free Speech Matters and How to Use It Fearlessly by Dr. Chloe Carmichael. Dr. Chloe, thank you for talking with me today.
Thank you, Dan. The pleasure was mine.
If you'd like to purchase Can I Say That, I've placed a link for you in the description below. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. Meanwhile, here are 2 more books you might find interesting. I'm Dan Skinner. Thank you for watching this edition of Some Books Considered.